That's where fractionalism is beautiful at every level. You can fraction yourself, pursue things that matter to you, and give the best of yourself in each little block.
Welcome to the Fractional Edge podcast, the ultimate podcast where we unlock the power of workforce planning and discuss the rapidly growing fractional executive staffing strategies to supercharge your business.
Meet your hosts, Carol Fraser, a workforce planning expert, fractional chief human resources officer, and founder of C4 Talent.
And Jason Huett, the sensei of marketing, fractional chief marketing officer, and founder of Fifth Degree Marketing.
We'll bring you insights from seasoned pros, inspiring success stories, and actionable strategies to optimize your valued workforce.
Don't miss this chance to upgrade your business with top industry leaders in today's competitive landscape. So tune in and learn how to unleash your competitive edge.
Look at how she took this data and morphed it right over to the human side of it, which gives me a great parlay to ask you questions about. You probably do partner a lot with people in human resources, right?
Yes.
One of the things you said was that you take disparate systems, you pull them together to better understand aggregately who's impacting what.
Right.
So one of the things that our podcast kind of focuses on is workforce planning.
Boom.
And that is kind of that component between what is the strategy for the organization? What are the goals for the organization? Who are the stakeholders? And then, of course, how are we going to get there? But they forget about the who. And that's that workforce planning, right? Like, how many people do we need to screw in a light bulb? And at what levels do we need each person to know how to screw in a light bulb?
Right.
What has your experience been, if anything, or maybe just your opinion around how to use data to better plan for your workforce for the future? And then, as you've already said, fractional data is so important in any organization, but how fractional leaders can begin to support the small and medium-sized businesses through data, which you're going to tell us, but also just overall at a lower cost with a bigger impact.
That's a very good question. And it's got various components to it. So if I miss something, please feel free to remind me. From a data perspective, when I look at any department, and I've done this before, but all kinds of confidentiality agreements, but I have a couple of case studies and a few examples that I created out of my experiences in my books that are out there and, on LinkedIn or whatever. But the bottom line is this. Once we know what objectives a business wants to pursue, so you have the objective key results, which are the goals, the OKRs, and then you have the KPIs that are used for measuring those OKRs. Now, they can be segregated by department. They could be holistic where, marketing and finance need to work together on this. Operations and finance need to work together on this. HR needs to work together with all of these people in order to figure out how many people each team needs at which points. But here's the thing. It's not just about placing the people in the right place, because people are people. They are human. I can't just take you and say, Carol, that's what you're going to do. Carol wants to do something else. Carol wants to be the best of Carol. And so as an HR person, it would be important to say, hey, Carol, you know what? Why don't you start with the design department right now? And we can give you the training that you need as you move up so that within this project itself, you can be a part of it from start to finish and learn all those skills along the way. Because that's what's going to keep Carol engaged. If we are no longer in those massive production factories where all you have to do is to tighten one screw and move it along. No, everybody wants to know what their product is going to look like. And providing that kind of a movement, well, again, using technical terms, but linear programming or optimization methodology allows these decisions to be made in a beautiful manner by taking into account the costs of each individual involved, costs of other resources involved, deadlines, timelines. So when I use the word cost, I don't mean only dollars, but also in terms of opportunity costs. If Jason is going to be doing designing while Jason's not doing marketing anymore. How much is that going to cost us? Is Jason better off doing marketing? And how do I decide if Jason wants to do designing? How do I make sure Jason remains happy and yet we can use him in both departments? So retraining, restructuring, identifying, okay, Jason, how about we split you 30-70 into these two departments? Because we can't lose you from marketing, but we want you to grow. Because you know what? Jason's 30% contribution in the marketing department, because of his experience, might be way worth more than a full-time person doing that same job. That's where fractionalism is beautiful at every level. You can fraction yourself, pursue things that matter to you, and give the best of yourself in each little block. And as an HR person in today's day and age, I'm sure you've seen this already. So kind of going back to what you said earlier, how do I use ChatGPT? Well, sometimes I have bullet points of things that I want to talk about. And I'm too lazy to write up a full 20-page paper on it. But I can put down the bullet points and be like, okay, write something up. Now, it doesn't sound anything like Kruti. It sounds like somebody regurgitated a whole thesaurus onto the paper, right? Like, and using the same keywords that are like buzzwords, right? Everywhere it's like, unleashing the power. I think if one more time I see that term, I'm going to be like, Jesus, please somebody change it in the code, But it happens, and that's okay. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but that's how it can be used. It can formulate a skeleton for you, and it works the same way with code. Now, my experience with coding in ChatGPT, warning for anybody who's experimenting with Python, C++, Java. If you're learning, you don't know what you're doing, do not use ChatGPT. Because it'll tell you what it thinks is the right thing to do, and you will end up looking like an idiot.
Kruti, I love this point because, I was in discussion with a bunch of marketers a couple weeks ago, and they said, ChatGPT it's this conglomeration of all of this information. And so if you want a really good average response, then go to ChatGPT, because it's going to give you the best of average. If that, I don't even know if that makes sense, but I think your point is very well taken. What's interesting here, now I'm really fascinated by the HR discussion and the questions, Carol, that you posed, is think of the power of having good data and understanding of that data to answer some of those HR questions. I mean, employee retention, it's got to be up at the top of the list for most companies. How do we retain our employees? How do we identify employees that are more likely to be successful with us? To those questions, I would have no clue as to how to go about carving that data up. And so glad, Kruti, that there are people like you. And I've also noticed that you've got to have a very unique DISC profile, personality profile, because I've heard a lot about data, but I've heard about it from a very people-oriented perspective.
We're very I. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that's a really unique strength that you have, is putting those two together.
Thank you. I know one thing, that most people that are afraid of math or hate math or believe that they can't understand math, it's because somewhere in their past they had a teacher or somebody they looked up to who told them that they were stupid for not understanding something. And that broke their confidence forever and ever and ever. So I try not to be that jerk. Because it's so easy to break someone's confidence when they're learning something new. I don't worry about ChatGPT's feelings because it's not a person. And my kids will tell you that I don't really care about anybody's feelings. But I will tell the truth, but I do believe that as human beings who are all learning and growing together, if we're not kind towards ourselves and towards each other, then we're really just wasting our time. YOLO, we have one life to live. We need to make sure we make the most of it.
Yeah. I'm curious. So, Fractionals new. Some people have been called consultants in the past. We're familiar with the term interim, but that usually meant full-time. So when you think about putting yourself out there as a fractional chief data and analytics officer, what do you think, for those who are listening, the CEOs, the founders, the PE firms, what myths do you want to help dispel about this movement that's happening right now around fractional?
More and more people today that are leaving full-time positions are leaving because they have realized that they have certain priorities in their life and for their own well-being that they're pursuing. However, they have all these years of experience, knowledge, information, and most likely, and this is what I've seen in every single fractional that I've interacted with, a versatility which is very unique, a risk-taking that is very unique. It's not risk-taking like I'm going to jump off the cliff and not tie a rope around my waist. It's a risk-taking which is very, very well thought out, well planned, and structured. So, in the context of that, like I said earlier, Jason might be able to do a full-time person's job with only 30% of his time. Jason does not need to be sitting on a chair because some outdated CEO thinks that that's the only way a person can productively work. Jason might be comfortable being in his pajamas and sitting in front of his computer, eating chips, but doing this job in that 30% of the time significantly better than somebody who is sitting full-time in an office space, completely disengaged from what they're doing. And that is what businesses need to consider. Fractionals come with a wealth of experience. They are different from consultants because it's not that they are not engaged in the decision-making of the company. They are not interim because they are not so wedded to the company that they will brown nose anybody that needs that in order to move up. They are there because they know they bring value. They are there because you know that they bring value. And it's a question of exchanging the best of the best in the shortest amount of time with the most economical decision-making possible. And if it turns into a long-term relationship, so what? There are no long-term contracts that have been signed. What I love about being a fractional is if I see something or someone that is the root cause of a problem, I have the guts to say it. Because what are they going to do? Fire me? Okay. There will be others who might be more amenable to the truth. But I've never been fired for that reason before. I'm just saying that, but that's the risk I'm taking. But that's where being a fractional matters because I'm invested in the company. I only continue getting paid from that company for my 30% time if that company is successful. If I'm not doing my job, if I'm not vested in that company, if I'm not giving my 100%, they're going to find somebody else who is going to give their 100%. Right? So it's the best of the economic exchange. It's the best of a contract, right? It's a win-win situation. If you like a person 30%, Jason, 30% of your time has changed the way my company behaves. Well, I want to keep Jason on for his 30% of the time because anything that he can do with me is better than what I can do on my own.
That is awesome. You said a couple of things that I just want to add a little 2 cents to. One, you said that fractionals, the people who are leaving their organizations, realizing that there is other priorities in their lives, they have an inherent ability to have a little bit more risk tolerance. And so often, that is not something that's appreciated in organizations, to push the envelope, to ask the tough questions. And then ironically, when you brought up consultants, yes, they will be better at maybe asking the questions. You may listen to them a little differently because they're seen as the expert. But the difference between a consultant and a fractional, consultants never really own anything, right? They're there because they can give you an opinion. They can give you a different perspective. But then after they do all of that, consultant's role is to walk away. Whereas a fractional brings the best of all of it for that small percentage of time. You get the expertise of a consultant, but you also get the benefit of somebody who's been in that role, owning that department or that function or that specialty. And they are there to be a little more risky than a W-2 employee because that's just kind of who they are. They have an entrepreneurial spirit that's coming out saying, I can help you at a completely different level than if I were your employee. Because if I was your employee, I'd be carried all of the daily, crap on my shoulders. Whereas here, I'm able to really bring a completely clearer set of values to your organization. I just wanted to add those two things in because you said some things that I was like, gotta parlay off of that one.
No, I like that. I completely agree. Fractionals, like I said, they have skin in the game. They have a reason to be there, and they are not. The beauty of it is most fractionals can stay away from any internal politics.
No.
And this is especially true in small to business sized firms where a lot of the people in the C-suite might be a part of one family.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
That's very true.
As a fractional, it's easier for me to come in and be like, okay, I don't really care what your relationship is. From a business perspective, this needs to be done. Let's get to that. Don't want to get involved. I don't need to be invited to annual picnics or, company gatherings or anything. I actually am a fractional because I don't want to be a part of all that.
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah.
But I think the number of fractionals is increasing is also because, like I said, I read somewhere recently that if you have more than 3 priorities in your life, you don't have any priority.
Yeah.
As someone who is done L&D her entire career, you will only retain 30% of what you learn. And I say this even when in my hobby of teaching dance, only think about 3 things when you're dancing. What are you going to work on when you're dancing? What are the 3 things? Anything more than that, and it's great to hear it from somebody who's a data person who knows it too. It's like, guys, it's like, come on, 3 priorities, 3 things on the dance floor. 30% is all you're going to be able to remember. You'll recall some things, but what will really live in deep in you is only about 30% of what you just learned. But this is also another great reaon to have fractionals, because even though you use Jason with his 30%, it's just, there's a theme happening here, people.
There is. And just because I want to make it even more, right? Did you know that human beings cannot successfully remember more than 7 numbers in a row over a long period of time?
That I did know because I'm actually at 5. 5 is my limit. But yeah, is that why phone numbers are
That's why numbers are 7 digits and area codes are 3 digits, kind of going back to the easiest things to remember is 3 digits.
okay.
And therefore, when you put them together, they become 10 digits.
Oh, that's so funny.
So at least the learning there is pair everything in 3s if you want to memorize more. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
You want to have a greater impact, I think. I mean, you want to see quicker results.
Actually, when we use large learning, machine learning models and stuff, that's the golden ratio for a lot of things. You use 30% of the data to train your model and use the remaining 70% to test it.
Okay.
30, 70, it shows up everywhere. And here is the biggest mind blower, coming from a data statistician person. You heard the term normal, right? What does normal mean? Normal means the middle 67% or rounded up 70% of any behavior. So you're going to remember the wallflower at a party who didn't talk to anybody. You're going to remember the person who got up on the table to dance. But it's the middle 70% that you don't remember anything about. Of course, it depends on if you were one of those 2 extremes. But the extremes are always that 30% on the other, each opposite side. That's why we use the word normal. Normal is the 70% time that we see something.
Yeah, there's direct implications to the advertising business in this one, because as people do more and more to capture your attention, that becomes the new normal. So does that mean to be memorable, you have to be less normal or outside the standard
You
deviation?
want to be memorable, you jump right outside that normal zone. Just remember, you want to be memorable for a good thing, not a bad thing. But the normal range itself, like if you think about a number line, the range of normal itself can shift over time, which is why, unless you have a starting point, none of the statistics is going to make sense. You can say, oh, we have 25% growth over what? Because if you had $1 and you made $1.25, that's not 25% growth that matters.
Right. Kruti, is there, one question we ask all of our guests on the show, is there one question that we didn't ask that you wish we would have asked?
What is the fun most part of doing data work for such a different set of organizations? And what do you learn from it?
Well, all right, Kruti. So what is the most fun thing about being a data and analytics person?
One, I can pretend that I'm the smartest person in the room, even if I'm not. And that's the best part. So it's like, say, every time I have any imposter syndrome show up, it's like an automatic deflate, like, shit, I don't do it, which helps. Especially when I first started, it was very helpful because it made me be like, well, I can always default to using all these technical terms and, I don't have to pretend. I don't do that anymore, but once upon a time. And the second thing is, I love the ability that it gives me to break things down for everybody in very simple terms, in understandable terms, in almost educating people about something that they already know. It's just like, let's just forget all the technical terms. Let's not talk about KPIs. What do you count as success? Why is it successful? What counts as a failure? Why was it a failure? And let's figure out if we can get you past that block that's preventing you from being your best.
I love it. I absolutely love it.
So,
Carol?
Kruti, how can people get a hold of you?
So I have my website, analyticstx.com. I also work with Acorn Oak, which is a community of fractional executive women. And what I love about being in that community is there's experts of every type, and we are all pretty close-knit. So if somebody needs like a data person, but the data person needs an HR person because data person does not know what HR questions to ask, well, data person can reach out to Carol and be like, Carol, I need help on this project. And we have, various, about 25 women with significant experience in every aspect. And we all work together nicely. At least nobody has been rude to me yet. Maybe they're just waiting for me to start, but I don't know. So these are the easiest way. I'm on LinkedIn. And I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to answer questions. I'm also on Upnotch, which is a mentorship platform. If somebody just wants it's a free platform for people to go and find mentors. So if people want to just kind of talk with me, see how things go, that's another place where, but I have my calendar link. They can just book an appointment with me. And if nothing else, I like meeting people in the business world. I like sharing. I like learning. So I can still play the 20 questions game.
That's amazing. Go ahead and close us out, Jace.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. This was a very, very entertaining episode, Kruti, and we're definitely going to want to have you back at some point. So if you want to tune in and listen, check us out. We're on LinkedIn. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere else, Carol?
YouTube.
Yep. And we're growing. So check us out, hit the like button, subscribe, and we will see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to the Fractional Edge. We hope you enjoyed our insightful discussions and feel inspired to unleash your competitive edge.
Remember to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated with the latest episodes. You can also connect with our podcast guests to benefit from their expertise and explore collaboration opportunities by visiting our website, thefractionaledge.com. Join us next time as we continue to explore the power of workforce planning and fractional executives in today's competitive business landscape. Until then, take care and keep growing.